Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nishay from NishaySnow.com. Welcome to the studio. Okay, this is episode 72, so of course you can find show notes for this page over at NACHESNOW.com/72. Okay, so today's guest is Lorraine West from Lorraine West Jewelry. Cannot wait to dig into her story. But just a few housekeeping items. First, as you guys know, please subscribe, rate, and share. It really, really helps the show. 5-star rating on iTunes, thumbs up on YouTube. Really, really helps. And thank you to everyone who's done it already. I have definitely noticed the difference in this second season. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I can't believe we're winding down. It's so crazy. I only have a few episodes left. But I'm starting to plan 2019. So if you guys have any ideas on themes or people, please send me a note at hello@nishaysnow.com. That's hello@nishaysnow.com. Or just send me a message via social media because I'm putting together my list now on the people that I'm thinking I want to interview. I think I have a good solid theme, but I really want to hear from you guys because you're the ones that are listening to the show. Okay. So, second thing, the Life Cleanse Journal. Please purchase one for yourself or a friend. That also helps support the show. The journal has you look at 10 areas of your life and take action. It's beautifully bound, and so it looks great on the shelf. So 3-5 years from now, you could take a look at what you've filled out this year and just see the progress that you've made and, how far you've come and what you've accomplished. So pretty cool. You guys know I'm a big time journaler. So definitely think about purchasing that, and you can just head on over to nishaysnow.com and there's a link right in the navigation to that. Okay. So let's get to today's guest. It is Lorraine from Lorraine West Jewelry. And you guys know I like to have a really diverse set of people on the show. And, what I love about having Lorraine on is she's been in business since 99, but I also have people who've been in business for like 2 months. So I really try to make sure that when I'm picking different business owners, that they have different backgrounds and that they also have different experience, because I feel like there's something to be learned from everyone in different stages of their business or career. And so I love having her on today because she's been in business since 1999, and she walks us through how she got started, why, because there was a strong why that she decided to go into jewelry, and then how she got her first break and continued to grow from there. And also what I really love about her too is that she has been able to get her jewelry on celebrities and influencers, and even her jewelry is on a very popular show right now. But she says in this episode that it is the everyday people that are going to feed you. So of course it's amazing to have celebrities and so forth, we're your product, but you got to eat, right? You got to pay your bills. And, I love that she's like, it's the everyday people, so you have to make sure that you focus on them too. So it's those type of lessons and more like on branding and having a strong brand that she talks about that has allowed her to sustain a profitable business through the years. So amazing story, but a lot of tangible tips and actionable tips rather that you can take and apply to your business, if it's jewelry or not. So I hope you guys enjoy listening to her story as much as I did. If you do, please, let me know on social media. I would love to hear your thoughts. And let's just get right into it. Here we go. Hello, Lorraine. Welcome to the Studio 78 podcast.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. I'm so excited to dig into your story and talk about your beautiful jewelry. But even before we get there, can you just tell the listeners a little bit about you before you started your business?
Sure. So I grew up in Central Islip, New York, Long Island. I am the fifth child of six children. My
Oh, wow.
parents are from the Caribbean.
Mm,
Yeah, they were entrepreneurs as well. My dad was a master carpenter, electrician, and my mom was a master baker and homemaker and home health care aide. She had her own business in the house, actually. So I watched her get up every morning and take care of four to six elderly, mentally ill women of
mm,
all different colors and backgrounds. So I grew up in an environment where my parents never worked corporate jobs. And, they owned a home and we had a vehicle. We had, you know, food, clothing, and shelter, all the basic things. I mean, we weren't rich, but we had the basics. When I was 18, I graduated from high school and I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology,
mm,
where I have a
mm-hmm,
BFA in fine art and a focus in illustration. So during my junior year, I wanted to do something else on the side while I was in school because I was in classes Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, sometimes 8 to 6 p.m., 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
mm.
Um,
Those
just
are long days. Yeah.
long days, yeah. Drawing, illustration is drawing. Um,
Mm,
drawing and painting and taking, academic electives and whatever classes that helped build the mind of an illustrator, understanding how to lay things out and design and things like that. So, yeah, my junior year, I just wanted to do something else. And my mom had a very small jewelry collection, like very, very small. Like, um, she had a lot of clothes and hats and shoes and boots, but her jewelry was small. So it was like very thoughtful what she had. And I
mm.
would just play in her jewelry box. I mean, I wasn't like a super girly girl. I was kind of a tomboy because I have three elder sisters, but they were in the age range of, they're like uh, 6 to 12 years older than me.
Mm.
So my brothers were closer in age, so I played with them a lot, and I collected toys, but didn't really play with them. I'd comb the hair or cut the hair, but my mom's my mom's jewelry. But back to my mom's jewelry box, I really loved the pieces she had. She had this wide band, maybe about an 8 millimeter wide or high. Sterling silver band. It was engraved, and she had a spoon bracelet with these beautiful encrusta flowers, almost like a
Mm.
adverse engraving where it kind of protrudes out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and she had the ring to go with it. So in my teenage years, I wore those rings, and I actually lost both. And I don't lose things. It was so weird. It was just like one day they just disappeared. I wore
You're
one.
like, where did they go? Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was just like heartbreaking. And I still visualize those rings. I still have the spoon bracelet, and I don't wear it because I don't want to lose it. Um, but I don't know. I guess, years later, from, teenage years, then into college, I just said one day I'm going to go to the store and get some pliers and cutters and some beads and wire and just start playing around. And I
Mm.
had no clue it would become anything. I just wanted to have fun. It was the first time I did something that I chose without thinking about the end result or expectation, because growing up I was always into the arts since I can remember, like first grade, I won my first like art contest, a drawing contest. I was always into art and I knew I wanted to
Mm.
be an artist. So by the time high school came and you had to go to college, um, I said, well, I draw. So I didn't really know exactly what field in art I wanted to get into, but I knew that I liked the cover of Time magazine when they had an illustration or the illustrations in newspapers. So I said, maybe I'll do that. And I really
Mm.
thought I was going to be an illustrator full time, but I don't know, just something came over me my junior year of college, and next thing you know, it turned into a real thing, you know? So I
Mm.
did that. And then I would say maybe the semester after I started, I had to take an elective, like a sculpture class or a jewelry class in college. You know, FIT has a jewelry department,
Mhm.
and this is Fashion Institute of Technology. And I said I'll take the elective, so I did that. It was wax carving, and you had to create a ring and a pendant. And I had no clue what I was doing. I was so overwhelmed. I was like, I don't understand this. You know, I had to ask so much help. You know, ask for so much help from the instructor, and I was just lost. I mean, I still ended up creating a beautiful ring and a beautiful pendant, which I still have the pendant, and I gifted the ring to someone years
Mm.
ago. But something, it was something there. You
It
know,
just clicked.
I stuck with it, even though I didn't really understand what I was doing. I still, in the end, created these things. You know, I had to ask a
Mhm.
lot of help, and I was afraid of the buffer machine at first because the buffer machine is very intimidating. You know, you have this 1 horsepower motor, you have this nozzle, you put the wheel on it, you know, you have different wheels, whether it be for like high polish, sanding, different things like that. So I was like super intimidated because, you know, if you're not holding the piece properly, it'll just like whip the piece and it can just like break the
Ooh.
light inside or it can hurt you. You know, anything can happen.
Oh,
Fly.
yeah.
So um, I realized that it was so much more than this glamorous piece of jewelry that, you know, people com- complete after making something. Um,
Mm.
but I just kept going. You know, I kept working with the wire at home and the beads, and started working with feathers and chain. And after I did those two metal pieces, I said, you know what? I want to keep trying this. And I
Mhm.
just attracted people that were interested. You know, like they'd see the piece that I did and say, "Oh, I want one." And so the first sale I ever got was actually, I had locks back in the day in the 90s, and I met this woman at this juice bar I was working at part-time. And I had this little box, it was a gold velvet box, and I had like just some wire wrap rings and some lock rings. And the woman was a beautiful woman. She was probably like in her 50s or 60s, but she looked amazing because she was a vegan and she didn't take supplements. She was just like, I just eat food to get my vitamins. And she loved
Mm.
the lock ring. And she's like, I want to buy one. And that was my first sale. And it
Oh,
just
wow.
turned me out. After that, I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually make money.
Someone bought it,
Yeah, because I
right?
wasn't planning to sell the stuff. I was just like, oh, I'll just show it. I would give things away. And a lot of it was very primitive. You know, it's like I'm just starting. I
Right.
have no background. I'm just starting out. So I would say after that, I started getting better because I started practicing more and playing around. And I might have like breezed through books, you know, jewelry books when I would go to Metalliferous in New York City, that
Mm.
sells like a lot of brass and silver and copper wire and metal supplies, and just kept practicing and got better.
And so what, after like practicing and getting that first sale, when did you say like maybe this could become a business?
By 1999, I had transitioned into creating beaded pieces with feathers, like peacock feathers and uh, leather cuffs.
Mm.
And I started getting a lot of interest, and people would buy them. And I didn't even really understand how to price things at the time. You know, I think I would sell certain cups for like 10, 20, maybe $30. And once I started seeing people wanting to buy it and take it seriously, I just kept buying more leather and making more cuffs. And again, I wasn't intentionally saying, okay, I'm going to start a business.
Mm.
You know, I didn't even have a business license at the time, you know, or a
Right.
tax ID number at the time. You know, I was just selling, you know.
And were you working like somewhere else while you were like selling like the jewelry on the side?
Well, when I graduated in 98, the spring of 98, I was actually making things and selling
Mm,
jewelry on the side. And I had, just like a part-time job,
okay.
just trying to figure out what to do. I sold some artwork here and there, but I wasn't really prepared for the real world
Mm,
after college. So I just always had this kind of hustle mentality. Like I really didn't like working for people. I didn't really like taking
mhm.
orders from people.
Right.
uh, so when I did work, these side part-time jobs, they were either in retail or, I worked in a juice bar twice. One was like a raw food juice bar, but I wouldn't do these things for very long. They'd be like for a few months, and I move on to another thing. So I would say in '99, I pretty much started living off of the work I was doing.
So you're like kind of doing this here and there, maybe not official yet. Was there kind of a turning point where you're like, oh my goodness, I need to, put more processes or structure or whatever into it because I'm now getting so many, requests to make jewelry for people.
Yes, '99. Yes, that was a turning point because flashback to '96, '97, I had actually met Erica Badu at a poetry reading called the Sunday Tea Party. And when I was in college, I had to do an assignment where we were doing a stippling, like pen and ink stippling drawing, and we had to find a celebrity from a magazine that we found interesting, like their face interesting. And we had to take press type and kind of like explode it outside of their face, or
Mm,
body. And I saw Erica Badu's picture and the vibe. It was the next, when they show the next hot artist that they think is going to blow up. And none of
mhm.
my friends knew who she was. Like, I was so proud. Like, I found this person. Some people I knew who she was because she was going to the Sunday Tea Party from time to time, and I used to go there. But the times that she would be there, maybe I didn't go that Sunday.
Mhm.
So I heard from people that, oh, she might be here the following Sunday. So it just kind of everything like happened in divine time because I did the drawing, not knowing I'm going to give it to her. I just did it because I was interested in her face. I just found her face to be really interesting. So in the drawing, I really brought out like, the bags under her eyes, like just the really strong details that she had,
Mm.
and,
Mhm.
and that was that. I was just happy to do it. But it just, after I finished it, that's when I found out, oh, she's at the tea party. Went to the tea party, went up to her after the show and said, hey, I did this drawing for you. Can I give it to you? She's like, sure. So I went to Brooklyn, the part of Brooklyn where she lived, and didn't know Brooklyn well either because I was staying at the dorm in Manhattan. And she received the picture and she invited me to one of her shows. And that was that.
Mm.
It was awesome. She was really sweet. And then I would say, like, it could have been like a week or two after. I told all my friends now knew about her, and one of my friends was also a clothing designer. She was really inspired, and a couple other people, and they're like, "Give her these things." And I'm so young. I'm just like, okay, I'll give it to her, not understanding even how that works. You know what I mean?
Right.
And went to her Brooklyn apartment, waited for the door to open, for somebody to open the door, and put the FedEx envelope with all this stuff in it under her door.
Oh, very. And was
And
your
she
stuff in there too?
Yeah, I had some some color copies of some other drawings.
Okay.
And she hung those things up in her apartment. They're still hanging up in her apartment,
Okay.
21 years later.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and she ended up working with that friend on clothes and traveling with her. And when I got more into the leather work, my same friend started working with Andre 3000 on some costumes. So she told me, why don't you come with me to the fitting? Like do some sketches and show him. So I just did a
Mm,
bunch of sketches like out of my head and didn't even have the materials. I just thought of the ideas. Went to the fitting with her. Andre 3000 was awesome, really sweet, down to earth. And he chose one of the cuffs and made him the cuff. The first attempt, I used a part of the leather that was a little soft, so he said, "Well, let's get a thicker leather." So I went back in and did another version and did this beautiful black cuff, probably about 6, 7 inches high or
Mm.
long with bones, and he wore it and he loved it. And I made him an arrowhead necklace. And back then I didn't take pictures, like I was just
It's
like,
not
okay,
like it is now, right?
yeah, okay, I did it. But when Badu saw Andre with the cuff, she loved them. So that's when we started
Ah.
connecting. Because I actually made her something like a wire piece with some some stone, and it was just like so primitive, and she still kept it as a piece like of art, in her space. That was like a couple years before,
Mm.
but it was after Andre. She liked the cuffs. She's like, I'd like some cuffs, so I started making her a bunch of leather cuffs. I guess she had almost a dozen leather cuff sets. She'd have for both arms, and
Oh,
she
so
wore
she
them.
was a
Yeah,
big cuff person. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So she wore a lot of those cuffs, and on stage and music videos. Some things she would order special. Then Worldwide Underground, she ordered a lot of copper work. So we did a lot of great copper work for her, like very high end looking copper work that she wore. And then Out My Mind, Just in Time, made a lot of stuff for her for
Mm.
that. And so one of the most prolific pieces I did for her was the brass wings, 9 inches long for that tour. And she ended up wearing them for years, almost 10 years down the line. And she wore them in the Queen video with Janelle Monáe.
Ah.
So we've done a lot of great work together. And she was just awesome, like allowing me, like some things she wore of mine that was my collection pieces, and some things she would say, hey, like the wings, she texted me at 3 a.m. in the morning, say, I want wings. And I said, I'll get back to you. Let me do a pattern. Did a pattern. You're a goddess. Let's move forward and do it. And in the end, I changed the direction of the pattern, and that was a good lesson for me because she didn't say anything to me, but I feel like I probably should have checked with her before I like shifted it.
Mm.
But I shifted it because the first pattern, the cuffs, the wings would have been like straight out, and it could have been a little dangerous for her, and maybe any if
Oh,
she stays diving or anything. So this one, I kind of
right.
like tilted the same pattern, and so the wings, the majority of the cuff is like hugging her arm, but then the end is like the wings like fluttering up. And in the end, I'm sure she loved it, right? Because she wore them, and I'm really happy and blessed that she made it a great investment. You know, she's
Mhm.
she's invested a lot in my work. She's purchased all my work and worn it for like such prolific things in her career. So I'm really, really blessed and thankful for her.
Did building those relationships then get you more exposure, and then did that help grow your business?
Yeah, it did get me more exposure. I must say that it didn't grow my business monetarily per se because the pieces that I'm doing for some of these artists, not everybody can wear it. I mean,
Mhm.
Erica, she can wear anything. You know what I mean? She's just like
Right.
the ultimate muse.
Mhm.
And I've worked with Raphael Sadiq. He was the first male client, male musician client to order gold pieces, like custom gold pieces for me. I did a lot of
Mhm.
pieces for Common, when he was into, wearing cuffs and things like that. And he's worn some of the things in his videos and in print. And Raphael's worn it in his videos and in print. He's wearing pendants on his All Hits album cover. So I feel like my work has been kind of a part of their story, you know,
Mhm.
and I'm really into stories. For example, like Raphael, he found me because I had made a piece for another male client. It was a really interesting silver bracelet and had all these cutouts, like these symbols and things. And that gentleman was dating his Raphael's road manager at the time, her best friend. So they were all out for dinner, and Raphael had just completed Instant Vintage but didn't put it out yet. So he had like the promo CD pressed and doing all the work to get ready to put out Instant Vintage.
Mm.
And he asked my friend, he said, "Hey, where'd you get that bracelet?" And he said, "Lorraine West. Oh, she's doing a sample sale." Um, I was doing a sample sale with a friend and Ashaka Givens, who's a clothing designer. We did a lot of collaborating with a lot of these artists as well. And he
Mm-hmm.
came to the sample sale, you
Well,
know,
nice.
and it was amazing, because I mean, he's like to me one of the most special clients because when I was in high school, I listened to Tony all the time. I ran tracks, so I'd listen to my Walkman and always rewind, anniversary, and so that was pretty major. But when he walked in the door, he was just so cool. Like
Right.
a legend. He's a legend. So cool and so respectful of our work. Like he looked
Mm,
at every single thing that we had.
mm.
He looked at every single thing that we had. He looked at our portfolios and just sat with us and just hung out. You know,
Oh, wow.
and then weeks later, he made a decision on what he wanted. We did sketches. He chose it and bought a lot of work and got to, see his studio, listen to him rehearse, after we fit him in LA. And it was great. So it was about 2 years, 2 or 3 years on and off, like him wearing pieces and getting supplement pieces. Yeah, it was awesome. But I mean, now I work with a lot of celebrities and artists and influencers, and it's become like a normal thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I must tell you that it's the everyday people that are really going to feed you and
Mm-hmm.
keep you in business because the celebrity clientele can be very supportive, but usually they'll order something for a specific thing, and they may make an order of one or two or three or a group of things to kind of last and stretch. Like there's things that some of the musicians have ordered. They might have ordered, you know, 5 years ago, and they end up wearing it now. You know,
Mm,
um,
mm-hmm.
because that's just how their mind works. Everything is about telling a story, and it almost becomes a part of their costume, like what it is they're
Right.
trying to portray. I would say the last 10 years has shown an increase in sales and interest because I diversified my designs.
Mm,
So I'm creating things that are minimal with a twist, classic with a twist. Some things are more bold, but it depends on the personality, And I'm
mm-hmm.
working with gold, I'm working with silver, I'm working with brass, I'm working with copper. So, I'm working with all these different materials and open to communicate different ideas so I can reach a different audience. When I was only working on like, bigger pieces, I would get a lot of interest, like, oh, this is so amazing. Or they may want something that a musician that they love is wearing, but it may not really work for them. I would say like the last like 10 years has been a huge increase. And in a way, I feel like I'm going backwards, but I'm going forwards. When I say that, I didn't start out the way some people start out, where they get their business name first and they get their business license first, and then they have their story and their mission and their vision. I just dived in, you know.
Right.
So, I mean, now I have those things, of course, but it was always kind of hard for me to tell my story too, because I guess there was a time I felt, well, I should have started that way, but that's now I'm totally accepting of it. Like I didn't. This is how I started, and this is my
That's
story,
your
and
story.
it's
Yeah.
totally fine. You know what I mean? So I respect people that know, okay, I'm going to start a business, and I'm going to do all these things I need to do first before I create a product. Like I created a product first, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so now I've come full circle, which is really great.
Well, let me ask you a question too, because I know for people who are starting out, one of the things that they want is to, possibly connect with artists and influencers to hopefully get more exposure to then sell like maybe their jewelry or whatever product to the everyday person. And so, any advice for them, like how to balance the two, or the best way to get influencers and artists to like even notice your product?
My advice to anyone that's starting out and wants to sell their work, whether it be to the everyday people, influencers, celebrities, I would say that it really comes down to having a great product.
Mm,
And a great product is something that has a theme, a concept, understanding that theme and concept, being able to communicate it with, glorious copy, that supports the imagery. The imagery has to be beautiful. The imagery has to be crisp and clear. Whether you use your iPhone or professional camera, whether you do it yourself or you hire someone to do it, it needs to be so good that if Vogue magazine saw you and your work, they could take that image and use it for Vogue. You
Mm.
know, I was in Vogue, British Vogue last year. Um, I had an ad in British Vogue. They invited me to have a small ad in the back of the
Very
magazine.
cool.
Yeah, and they used my image. All they did was just cut out the background and, made a white background and they used my image. So I've learned over the years the importance of imagery. The first time I told you in the 90s when I started, I used like a throwaway camera and
Mm.
all those pictures were like blurry and crazy. I mean, we just live in a different time now. Like, there's no excuse why your images can't be crisp and clear. There's no
Right.
reason.
Like
It's
with these
unacceptable.
smartphones, like right, everything could be gorgeous now, right? Like
It's
the
unacceptable. Yeah, and if
right.
you don't understand how to use it, they have companies that teach you. I mean, I have a collaborator that I work with. Her name is Tamara Darden, and she has a company called Darden Creative, and she teaches people how to do flat lays with the cell
Mm,
phone, with a professional camera. There's no excuse. So you have to practice, you have to lay things out, you have to experiment with different, you know, objects or display to show depth of the pieces that you're selling. In terms of getting the work out to people, you have a clean website that has at least your about page, collections page, or shop page. You may have a press page. You may have an IG faves page that you could sell pieces from the IG. The about has a very clear bio, and you can get as
mhm.
deep as you want, or you can get as simple as you want. I mean, my bio right now is like really really simple, but I decided that going into the new year, I'm gonna get deeper into my story so people can really get an idea of my background. Because I think
Mhm.
like my angle is that a lot of people don't know my history, how far I go back, and the type of work that I've done. You know,
Mhm.
um, so I now need to communicate that in a sophisticated way, in a clear way, in a concise way, without giving you too much information. So
Right.
so that's going to be a great project for me to work on. But yeah, so have those things. Have at least one social media that you really love, you're really good at using, and go hard in the paint with that. I
Mm.
notice some people tag people that they want to see their work. Like I notice some people they'll tag Vogue and they'll tag Beyonce and they'll tag all these people. I don't do that
Mm.
personally. It may work for people. I don't do that because my perspective is I'm a realist. So and I
Right.
also want and I also want people to feel the realness. Like I want them to know like okay, when I post something, this is something that happened.
Mm.
This is not something that's going to happen. This is something that happened, right?
Mm.
So sometimes I wait for things. You know, for example, my work has been on Queen Sugar for the past 2 seasons,
Mm.
and
Mm.
second season that was huge because I had never had my work on a television show like that. You know, and just how it happened, there was a costume designer that worked with another costume designer, and they weren't working together on this project, but they talked with one another. Hey, you know of any black designers? Like, I want to get some, black and brown designers on here. This person I never met said, yeah, I know of Lorraine West. She gave about 20 names, and I was the only person out of the 20 that she ended up calling. We met, we talked about things. She ordered 50 pieces for me, and many of the pieces made it on season 2, and some of those pieces made it on season 3 again because they became a part of her story. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
right. Yeah.
Pieces
Yeah.
that were very specific for her story. So that's who I am. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that's who I am. I think that people need to tap into who they are and figure out who they are. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I admire a lot of great young designers, you know, elders, peers, younger designers coming up that are killing it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
millennials are killing the game. Like some of these people, they're starting off right. You know what I mean? And they learn from
Mhm.
them, but I really I can only share my experience. You know what I mean? I can only share what I think is a standard, a high standard. I think that people should really have something to offer, and not just, oh, can you wear my stuff? Or, look at my stuff. And what are you offering? Why should somebody wear your stuff? Why is it important
Mhm.
to, to connect with you? You may not get your work on every person that you love, and that's okay. You know what I
Right.
mean? Not going to be friends with everyone you meet, and that's okay. You know, but if you do find there's a connection with somebody, there may be a way to meet them or introduce your work to them. Do it in a way where it's not about you're just trying to use them. You know what I mean? Do
Right.
it in a way where they feel like this is something authentic. You know,
Mhm.
'cause I have people all the time say, "Oh, why is this person wearing it? And why don't you send it to this person?" And it's like, listen, I have to think about my bottom line too. Like, sure, I would love everybody fabulous to wear my stuff, but
Right, but you're not just starting to give away $1,000, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of jewelry either,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Because here's another thing about working with, artists. They get so much. Sometimes they get so much free stuff that it, it's they're desensitized by it at that point. And I can't say for
Mhm.
every artist, but I'm sure there's a certain percentage of artists that get a lot of free stuff. I mean, I know a lot of uh, influencers, bloggers, writers. They get free stuff all the time too. You would think that they're the president of the United States, the amount of things that they get.
Right.
And after a while, it's going to take that thing that really stands out that's going to get their attention. When people do the unveiling and the opening of their packages on IG stories or IG,
Yeah.
they're only going to open the things that are really a standout. They're a standout because the logo design is great, the packaging is great, the colors are great. There's a note, a
Mhm.
handwritten note. I write a handwritten thank you in every order that I get, you know.
Mhm.
And some customers, depending on the status, and yes, it's like you have platinum, gold, silver, copper, or bronze. You have those members. I have everyday clients that spend thousands of dollars with me. They're going to get a different type of card. You know what
Right,
I mean?
right,
They're
right.
going to get a different type of card. But even like my standard card is still beautiful. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the
Right, no
customer
matter
feels
what.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I may throw in an extra piece
Mm.
because, they spent so much money, or just sometimes I throw in an extra piece to the everyday customer. I sometimes I do that for someone that spent $50 just to make them feel extra special too. So it just depends on how I feel. With me, I go with spirit, I go with vibe, you know what I mean? And I'm
Mhm.
learning to uh have more of like a corporate mindset, as I
Mhm.
grow, because I have no choice because I'm growing, you know. Um
Right.
but I want to keep that balance of that refined way of thinking, that organic way of thinking, and it shows in my designs as well, that same sensibility.
No, I think that's some great advice, because it really does. I try to tell people this too. It's like your whole brand from like even when I go to your website right now, like it's absolutely beautiful. The images are gorgeous. They're professional, right?
Hmm.
And they're taken in a way where it really highlights like the beauty of like your jewelry. And then if that is also, like you were saying, carried over into the presentation of your packaging too. So it's all this kind of cohesive, consistent feel. And then like your brand has like this level of elegance, no matter if you're just seeing it in digital form or you're actually touching physical pieces. Like it's all together. But then when people see it, they love it. And it makes them want to say, like, oh my God, yeah, you need to check out Lorraine West. Like her pieces are beautiful. Her packaging is beautiful. Like however they've connected with you, it's going to be, there's that consistency there because it's always beautiful no matter what.
Thank you so much. That is definitely my goal.
Yeah.
I really aim to please, like I really want to please people. I mean, I'm a serial people pleaser, but I think it helps. Well, I'm a recovering serial people pleaser. I'm recovering. Um, I've put up better boundaries in my life, and I'm much happier for it now. But when it comes to the customers, I do want to. give them my all. Another thing I would say for designers that are in business or about to be in business, if you don't have a policy form, you must make a policy form.
Ooh.
The policy form will protect you. The
Mm.
policy form lays out the map of what it takes to work with you. You know,
Mm.
you can have it on your website. You can have a separate form. In the fall, I'll be updating my policies and adding more information. For
Mm.
my custom high end clients, or I would say high end pieces, I'd have a separate form that I send to them after they fill out the submission form. And the submission
Mhm.
form is you're showing an interest in a custom piece, and usually it's in gold, with precious stones. And
Mhm.
they can, fill out the form according to the fabrications that they're looking for. I get back to them. I let them know, okay, this sounds good. I clarify whatever it is, they stated that they're interested in, and I send them my form, and they read over the form, and they say, "Great, let's move forward." It has
Mm.
everything in there. It has what the deposits are, how I receive deposits, the steps it takes to start the piece to finish the piece. In my
Mhm.
earlier years, I didn't do that. Everything was off of like vibes and trust. You know,
Mhm.
I think that helped me. I mean, I've heard that there's people that don't even fulfill orders. Like I've heard that there's people that have websites and businesses and they just collect money and they don't deliver. You know,
Ooh.
or they're just and I don't know anyone personal. So
Right,
this is
right.
no one personal. Everybody in my network is doing it. They're really
Mhm.
fantastic. But you read blogs or you read, you know, stories and business magazines about things and people create false accounts and things like that. So you
Mhm.
definitely have to make sure that you're going to fulfill the order. If you're going to be late, you need to communicate that, oh, I may need more time.
Mhm.
You may need to give an extra piece or a credit or something if a customer feels like their piece didn't arrive at a certain time, but for the most part, try to stay on schedule, try to be realistic with your schedule. You know, some things may take custom things may take 2 to 6 weeks. And if you look at some of the biggest designers, like they'll say that a custom piece will
Mhm.
take up to 6 weeks, you know. Um
Right.
so it's just kind of like learning your workflow. If you're making it yourself, then you definitely need more time. If you have a production house, then you need to make sure that the production house is staying on top of the schedule as well. But things
Mhm.
happen. Things happen. Things happen.
So I think you're right. Like you absolutely have to protect yourself with the policy, but then also just make sure you're realistically giving yourself enough time. Like it makes more sense to build in more time than try to be like, oh yeah, I can give you this in 3 weeks, knowing that you're going to have to kill yourself to do it and then turn around and probably say like, I need an additional X amount of time. Right.
Yes, yes. And I'm not going to front, like I have definitely had moments where I underestimated how much time I needed on things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um and that those were big lessons for me. So now now I'm a lot better because I've been doing it for a long time. I know how long certain things take, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that once I start the job, like what I'm going to need to do to get to the finish line, because there's hurdles that come up, And I hope I don't sound negative. I'm not trying to be negative, but I'm just like giving you, I mean, I'm in business every day, so I know the different things that happen. There's times
Right.
that things happen perfectly. It happens perfectly. I mean, there was a time I had a ring where I was working with an amethyst stone, and the gentleman was going to propose to his now fiance that Sunday. So I had to finish it by Friday, and we planned, because when he did come to me, sometimes I have customers that come really late. They want these pieces on a certain day, and I say, okay, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I delivered it. But what it took to deliver it, it was it was just amazing how God just stepped in for me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was this beautiful amethyst stone, trillion stone, beautiful stone. And I set the stone in 18K white gold, and it was a little hard for the stone, so sometimes like the hardness of a metal can affect the stone, right? So again,
Mm-hmm.
when you're working with fine jewelry, you have to be educated. You have to be educated, whether you go to school, you teach yourself, you're an apprentice, you have to understand the anatomy of the materials you're working with, you know. And so when the stone was being set, the side of the stone cracked. I'm working with this master stone setter, and my spirit was like, I need to go make sure that I'm overseeing it. And I did. It was raining. I had my son with me. I had to run to the gem dealer, and they usually close at that time, but they happened to be open just like a few minutes later. And they
Ooh,
had
ooh.
one more stone that was the size. Because remember, this has to get done. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it has to be the same size stone. So
Mm.
they had another stone. This stone was even better. It was more robust. It had a bigger pavilion, and I had enough room in the design to fit it. And so I rushed back, and the stone setter set it, and it came out perfect. Gave it to the client on Saturday, proposed on Sunday. Client was in love, you know.
Oh, yay.
So,
Right.
but that, but that taught me some things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what I started doing after that was, you know what? You may want it on this date. I can't deliver it to you on this date.
Right.
I need more time. So you either change the date you want to get engaged or you go somewhere else. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it's just having the courage to do that. And it's really not about being rude to the client or the potential client. It's about protecting yourself. Like I would rather not do something if I'm not going to be able to fulfill it in a certain way than take it and then I have problems. You know what I mean? If I
Mm-hmm.
kind of foresee it from the beginning, you know.
Yeah.
So now I work with a tighter schedule with the clients. So we do things in stages. So week one may be, I'm sourcing the gemstone. Week two, I may find the gemstone. I may find the gemstone a month later. It depends.
Mm.
So once we find the gemstone, then we start flushing out ideas. Then we get to the sketches. Then we get to the final design. I may do a hand carved wax model that I do myself. I may do a 3D CAD model. I may hand fabricate, you know.
Mm.
So I'm heavily a part of the process, and I do have partners that I work with, and we all work on it together as a team.
Mm.
So a lot of my ready to wear pieces, I make mostly everything by hand myself. But now that the business is growing, I'm working with manufacturing. So
Oh.
yeah, so small. I have one company I work with that is very, very small. It's just three bench jewelers, you
Mm.
know, and they work on a lot of other fantastic indie designers' work. So I'm just starting to slowly get into that, but just
Mm.
starting because
Right.
I'm obsessed with touching everything. You know what I mean? Like I want to touch everything. I want everything to come through me, but I am getting so much more orders, so much more inquiries, so much more interest that is forcing me to grow and get out of my comfort zone. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
comfort sometimes is doing things that you really don't need to do anymore. You really need to graduate from that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm being very transparent because I am that person. And I think that in this time, people should hear more real stories and not just, oh, I made this beautiful piece and it got on this fabulous person. And there's so much more to it than that. Even some of the biggest brands, film houses, filmmakers, artists, there's always something. There's always going to be
Mm-hmm.
something that can get in your way. And how are you going to attack it? How are you going to overcome it? How are you going to get over the hurdle, get around it, go under it to complete your task without stepping on anybody's toes, without disrespecting anyone, without hurting yourself, and making sure that you get some type of profit off of it because we're all in this business. We want to give a good product and service, but we also want to make a living doing what we love to do, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's a happy medium, like being fair to yourself, being fair to your client. being transparent, explaining what these costs are, why these costs exist, and your customer being able to feel good about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, no, that's perfect. And so thank you for being so honest because I think people need to hear that so they know what they're getting into when they are starting their own businesses. And then I just have like a few wrap up questions for you.
Mhm.
This episode has been gold.
Oh,
uh,
awesome.
uh,
Golden, golden,
yes.
golden bricks are raining from the sky.
Exactly. But what keeps you like motivated? Because you've been in business now, for several years. You've passed that like what is it, like the 5-year hump. And so what, continues to motivate you to create this beautiful jewelry?
Well, the people motivate me, just people admiring the work, people that have purchased the work and they want to continue to support. I feel like there's no turning back for me. Even in those days where I feel discouraged, I'm not going to quit. I can't stop. I've come too far to stop because if I've gotten this far, where else can I go? I really feel like I'm scratching
Hmm.
the surface. One of my ultimate goals is to have my own studio where I have my own artisans that are helping me produce the work, you know?
Ooh, very
Uh,
cool.
yeah, so and I find that sometimes like being able to oversee your own staff is really the best way to go. Because when you're working with
Hmm.
manufacturers, they're working on hundreds, maybe thousands of other different designers' work or companies' work. So there's times where something may get overlooked, but I'm a perfectionist and I want things to be right. I want it to be as perfect as it could be, you know.
Hmm.
And so that's one of my goals. But in the meantime, I do what I'm able to do, what I'm capable of. You know,
Hmm.
what's my capabilities? I know what tools I have, what equipment I have, and what I could do with those things. If I don't have it, where can I go to source it and get it? So you don't have to stop just because you have limited resources. Like you can go outside of what you have and partner with people. And I think what's important to me is the relationships. Like I love having relationships with clients, with collaborators, making them feel really good about themselves. You know, I think
Hmm.
I think people love the work, but I think they also love where it's coming from and where the intent is coming from. You know,
Hmm.
so those are the reasons why I keep doing it. And I just have this unexplainable drive. Like no matter what's going on with me, it's a fire inside. Sometimes it
Hmm.
burns brighter than other times. And I also believe again, like we're we're organic, we're breathing, we're living, we're constantly changing. We're constantly being influenced by things within us, things without us, things in the spirit realm that we just have to be open and be strong when we have those moments that we feel discouraged because it's just going to pass, you know?
Hmm.
And so you got to just keep that pilot light on inside. And sometimes you need to like relight it, make it brighter or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, don't dim the light, don't blow it out. And I just want to succeed. I just want to get as much beautiful work out there and touch as many people through my work. And I feel like when people wear my work, they're wearing a piece of me and my essence, and
Hmm.
they can, be reminded in their everyday lives to be beautiful and be strong. And men or women,
Yeah.
they can be beautiful and strong. Like people should be beautiful and strong. People should be loving and kind and compassionate to themselves and to others. And that's why I do what I do, you know.
Mm.
So I guess it's a
Very cool.
spiritual thing for me.
And then what is one thing that you can't live without?
I can't live without my family. I really, really
Hmm.
love them, you know. So, yeah, I love my fiance and my son, and they're such a great source of support, because I mean, even right now, I'm home with my son, and he's able to entertain himself while mommy's on the call. Like he understands that I'm an entrepreneur. Sometimes he'll introduce me to people and say, "This is my mom, Lorraine West, and she's a jeweler." You
Oh,
know,
wow.
jewelry designer. He's 7. You know,
Right.
so his dad is a musician and an artist, a visual artist. So this is my dad. He's a his name is Swade Jenkins. His stage name, his real name is Solomon, like me.
Right.
And so he's like our little PR person.
Right.
You know.
And then please just tell the listeners where they can find you, your website, and any social media handles you want to share.
Sure, you can purchase my work on my website at www.lorrainewestjewelry.com. You can see highlights of my work, people that wear the work, product shot images of the work on my Instagram. That's at Lorraine West Jewelry.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. So many practical tips. I love her advice for attracting influencers, going back to knowing your why. Why is it important for people to connect with you? You should have something to offer, right? Just don't expect handouts. You should ask yourself, why should someone wear your stuff? You know that answer. And make sure you're not just using people to get ahead. Like it should be a genuine contact. Like, their audience really would benefit from your brand, right? And also, you should be willing maybe to do something for them. It's like an exchange of goods. And so I thought her tips on that just for attracting influencers was great. And then also the policy form that she mentions at the end. And for every business, usually there is some legal something you need to do, which a lot of us are try to steer clear of. But make sure you get that set up. There's a lot of creative lawyers out there, and there's a lot of online resources that you can use to get started on doing that. So just make sure you do it and just kind of get it out the way to make sure that you protect yourself. All right, so I guess this is it for today, and I will see you guys next week. Remember to subscribe, rate, and share this episode. I'd really appreciate it. And just head on over to nashasnow.com/72 to get the show notes and any links that were mentioned in this episode. All right, folks, have a beautiful day. Talk to you next week. Bye.